Hey, I was reading a blog post which I wrote, I think 5 or maybe even 6 years ago when I was living in America, and it was about relationship, or maybe even interaction between an architect who is responsible for the technical solution in the project and product owner or maybe a customer. It's a territory of conflict in most cases where the product owner has the money and has the expectations for the project and has the responsibility in front of customers or money people, the budget, the sponsor, everything. And the architect is supposed to be the technical person who is in an ideal situation, who's supposed to think about how to do things right, how to technically do things properly, not just do whatever the customer says, but actually in most cases do something that customer doesn't say or doesn't know how to say or doesn't care or doesn't have an idea of how it should be done. So the customer, very often the customer has certain ideas about how things should work technically, and they are not really professionals. So they hire an architect and then they say, you are the architect, we trust you, and then the second day they start asking questions like, why are you doing it this way? Why do you use this programming language? Why do you choose this architecture? Why do you need 4 servers instead of 3 servers? Why do you need this technology to be used instead of that one? All these questions they start asking, and the architect start answering. And my article is titled "Convince Me." It says, the title says "Convince Me" because this is what very often this product owners or product people, money people, come to the architect with the statement, convince me. I'm not convinced that Java is the best language for us because, I have a friend who told me that C# is the best language. Now, convince me that Java is the best one. And architects, they spend tons of time and energy for this convincing, not only explaining, but actually convincing, because explanation sometimes is not enough. You need to really convince that people that Java is a good programming language. And very often we fail. I'm saying we because I'm usually on the side of an architect and I know how we fail. We just don't know how to convince, or sometimes it's just unconvincible situation. You can't convince easily that Java is better than C# because, it's impossible to convince. So what do we do? So my point, it was 6 years ago when I was writing that article, and it's still the same. I feel it now after that time. I just have more experience on that. I have more cases which prove the same idea, is that it's a wrong strategy, the wrong tactics to actually go into convincing these people. The more you convince, the less power, technical power, the less transparency, the less authority you will have in the project. The more you convince them that you are right, the less they trust you. I believe this is what's happening. So instead of convincing, I'll just give you the counter method, and then we compare. So instead of convincing them, you should try. It's not always possible because people are people. They will always try to come back and say, convince me. So you should try to tell them, where are the borders of my responsibility? So you told me that I'm supposed to design the system. You told me that the system should be fast and bright and attractive for the users, and it should be able to run, to handle 1,000 requests per minute, for example. You told me that. I have this description of the requirements. And now you come back to me and say, why do you do it in Java? So my question to you, whether this decision about Java is within my borders of responsibility or outside of those borders. So if it's inside my borders, then don't ask me this question. I do whatever I want, no matter how harsh it sounds. If it's outside the borders, then put it in the document. Let's discuss it. Let's put it in writing. So if you really want it to be in C#, then on top of saying that the system has to be fast, it has to handle 1,000 requests per minute, just say it has to be in C#. And when you say it, it's going to be the decision which stays outside of the borders, outside of scope of my responsibility. So it's not my decision anymore. I don't care. You want C#? Okay, I'll take it. I'll take it as something which is undisputable. So it is C#. So it's not my job to even to think about whether it's C# or not. Let's clearly put this line between us. What's mine, what's yours. It's okay for me to have many things outside of this line. It's okay for me to put as many things as you want there. But as long as you don't put it there, then let me make my decisions by myself. It sounds harsh. I mean, it sounds pretty aggressive in some cases, but try to deliver this message in a polite way, but deliver it. Because if you cross that line, if they come to me, if they can cross that line easily, if they come to you and say, explain me what you're doing, explain why all these decisions are made, and you start explaining, start convincing, because in the beginning you will feel that you have all the reasons to convince. You know what you're doing, you make very smart technical decisions, you have all the reasons for that, you made the comparison, so you know what you're doing. And you easily start explaining. That's your mistake, you don't do that. The moment you start doing that, you lose your power in the project because they will cross that line more and more often. And in the end, you're not the architect, you're just yet another programmer, and they make all the technical decisions. Or the decision is still yours, you think you make them, but when something goes wrong, it will be impossible to prove who made the decision because we made them together. They come to you, they tell you that Java is not good, let's use C#, you fail to convince, you say okay, you say C#, then something goes wrong, you cannot find enough C# programmers. Who is at fault? It's your fault. You're the architect, you decided to go for C#. Well, we told you it's okay C#, but blah, blah, blah. So in the end, it will be difficult to draw that line down the road. It's better to draw it in the beginning. Every time they ask you to convince them, think about whether it's your decision, then you don't convince. If this decision is inside your scope, you say, I'm not going to convince. For some reason, you can make up the reasons. You can say, I don't have time, or I don't know, this decision is typical, or this is all I know, but it's yours. So protect your territory. Don't let them make you explain them what you do. Unless it's something in the requirements document. Then, of course, it's yours. It's theirs. So the decision is theirs if it's in the requirements document. So that's what I think. I hope it helps. It's difficult. I'm not going to be easy. Again, let me reiterate on that because it's not going to be easy. You're not going to but start fighting in this direction. And in a new project for sure. In the existing projects, maybe it's too late. Maybe already these people are right here, sitting on your shoulders and asking you to convince everything. Then it's too late. Of course, you lost it. You lost your position as an architect. But when it's a beginning, think. Be careful and don't even try to explain yourself. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned. Bye-bye.